2 leaves of an early Quranic manuscript in the Mingana collection of Middle Eastern manuscripts of the University of Birmingham's Cadbury Research Library were radiocarbon dated in 2015 between 568 and 645, meaning that the material on which it is written comes from that period in history. The manuscript is written in ink on parchment, using a monumental Arabic Hijazi script, and is still clearly legible. The leaves preserve parts of Surahs 18 to 20. It was on display at the Birmingham University, Bramall Music Building, from 2 to 25 October 2015 and subsequently at Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery until 5 August 2016. Description: the 2 leaves have been recognized as belonging with the 16 leaves catalogued as BNF Arabe 328 in the Bibliothèque Nationale de France in Paris, now bound with the Codex Parisino-Petropolitanus, and witness verses corresponding to a lacuna in the text. The Birmingham leaves, now catalogued as Mingana 1572 at a folio size, and are written on both sides in a generously scaled and legible script. One 2-page leaf contains verses 17 to 31 of Surah 18, while the other leaf the final 8 verses 91 to 98 of Surah 19 and the first 40 verses of Surah 20, all in the present-day sequence and conforming to the standard text. The 2 surviving leaves have been separated in the original codex by a number of missing folios containing the intervening verses of Surahs 18 and 19. There are no diacritical marks to indicate short vowels. The consonants are occasionally differentiated with oblique dashes. The text is laid out in the format that was to become standard for complete Quran manuscripts, with chapter divisions indicated by a decorated line, and verse endings by intertextual clustered dots. Identification: Alba Fedeli, who was studying items in the Mingana collection of Middle Eastern manuscripts for her PhD thesis, Early Quranic Manuscripts, the text, and the Alphonse Mingana papers held in the Department of Special Collections of the University of Birmingham, found the 2 leaves misidentified and bound with those of another 7th-century Quranic manuscript also written in Hijazi script. Following an approach by the Berlin-Brandenburg Academy in 2013 to contribute a sample from Islamic Arabic 1572 to the Corpus Quranicum Project to investigate textual history of the Quran, which coincided with Fedeli's research into the handwriting, the Cadbury Research Library arranged for the manuscript to be radiocarbon dated at the University of Oxford's Radiocarbon Accelerator Unit. They dated the parchment to between AD 568 and 645, within a 95.4% confidence interval, with the sample reference OXA29418. The results will be published in Datalist number 36 of the journal Archaeometry. Significance: the proposed radiocarbon date for the manuscript is significant, as Muslims believe that the Prophet Muhammad lived from c. 570 to 632. According to Sunni Muslim tradition, it was the 3rd Caliph Uthman, elected 12 years after the Prophet's death, who compiled and canonized the version of Quran since accepted and used by all Muslims worldwide, then commanding that all previous versions be burned. In the university announcement, Dr. Muhammad Isa Wali, lead curator for Persian and Turkish manuscripts at the British Library, is quoted as saying, "The Muslim community was not wealthy enough to stockpile animal skins for decades, and to produce a complete mishaf, or copy, of the Holy Quran required a great many of them. The carbon dating evidence, then, indicates that Birmingham's Cadbury Research Library is home to some precious survivors that, in view of the surahs included, would once have been at the center of a mushaf from that period, and it seems to leave open the possibility that the Uthmanic redaction took place earlier than had been thought, or even, conceivably, that these folios predate that process. In any case, this, along with the sheer beauty of the content and the surprisingly clear Hijazi script, is news to rejoice Muslim hearts. David Thomas, professor of Christianity and Islam at the University of Birmingham, is quoted as saying, "The tests carried out on the parchment of the Birmingham folios yield the strong probability that the animal from which it was taken was alive during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad or shortly afterwards. This means that the parts of the Quran that are written on this parchment can, with a degree of confidence, be dated to less than 2 decades after Muhammad's death. These portions must have been in a form that is very close to the form of the Quran read today, supporting the view that the text has undergone little or no alteration and that it can be dated to a point very close to the time it was believed to be revealed." Dr. Saad Al-Sahan, director of Center for Research and Islamic Studies in Riyadh, has been more skeptical, questioning whether the parchment might have been reused as a palimpsest, and also noting that the writing had chapter separators and dotted verse endings, features in Arabic scripts which are believed not to have been introduced to the Quran until later. Dr. Saud's criticisms have been backed by a number of Saudi-based experts in Quranic history who strongly rebut any speculation that the Birmingham, Paris Quran could have been written during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad. They emphasize that while the Prophet was alive, Quranic texts were written without any chapter decoration, marked verse endings or use of colored inks, and did not follow any standard sequence of surahs. They maintain that those features were introduced into Quranic practice in the time of the Caliph Uthman, and so it would be entirely possible that the Birmingham leaves could have been written then, but not earlier. Professor Suleiman Burke of the Faculty of Islamic Studies at Yalova University has noted the strong similarity between the script of the Birmingham leaves and those of a number of Hijazi Qurans in the Turkish and Islamic Arts Museum, which were brought to Istanbul from the Great Moscow, Damascus following a fire in 1893. Professor Burke recalls that these manuscripts had been intensively researched in association with an exhibition on the history of the Quran. The Quran in its 1400th year held in Istanbul in 2010, and the findings published by François Desroches' Qurans of the Umayyads in 2013. In that study, the Paris Quran, BNF Arab 328, is compared with Qurans in Istanbul, and concluded as having been written around the end of the 7th century and the beginning of the 8th century. Professor Joseph E. B. Lombard of Brandeis University has written in the Huffington Post in support of the dates proposed by the Birmingham scholars. Professor Lombard notes that the discovery of a Quranic text that may be confirmed by radiocarbon dating as having been written in the first decades of the Islamic era, while presenting a text substantially in conformity with that traditionally accepted, reinforces a growing academic consensus that many Western skeptical and revisionist theories of Quranic origins are now untenable in the light of empirical findings, whereas, on the other hand, counterpart accounts of Quranic origins within classical Islamic traditions stand up well in the light of ongoing scientific discoveries. In December 2015, Professor François Desroches of the Collège de France confirmed the identification of the two Birmingham leaves with those of the Paris Quran BNF Arab 328, as had been proposed by Dr. Elba Fedeli, professor Darosh, however, expressed reservations about the reliability of the radiocarbon dates proposed for the Birmingham leaves, noting instances elsewhere in which radiocarbon dating had proved inaccurate in testing Qurans with an explicit endowment date, and also that none of the counterpart Paris leaves had yet been carbon dated. Dr. Mustaf Shah, senior lecturer in Islamic Studies at the School of Oriental and African Studies, has suggested that the grammatical marks and verse separators in the Birmingham leaves are inconsistent with the proposed early radiocarbon dates. Jamal bin Huwairib, managing director of the Muhammad bin Rashid Al Maktoum Foundation, has proposed that, were the radiocarbon dates to be confirmed, the Birmingham, Paris Quran might be identified with the text known to have been assembled by the first Caliph Abu Bakr between 632 CE and 634 CE. Background: the Mingana collection, comprising over 3,000 documents, was compiled by Alphonse Mingana in the 1920s and was funded by Edward Cadbury, a philanthropist and businessman of the Birmingham-based chocolate-making Cadbury family.